It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about how, kids can be something that devastates wealth. Inflation or the rising costs of goods can be something that devastates devastates wealth. Here's the third one that we've actually seen, and unfortunately, we've seen this one over and over and over in real life case studies with people in the community, with friends, family, is that folks don't account for how risk can impact your financial situation and circumstance over the long term.
Yeah, it's, this is one experience share is that I have only once in my career recommended that a prospect reach out to an attorney because I felt like the way their money was previously managed was so egregious,
negligent,
that they should go seek counsel to see if they should get something back.
Yep.
Because it was horrible to see somebody. I can't remember if she was late 70s or
she
early
was
80s.
Late 70s when we first talked to her.
Who had a portfolio that looked like the latest and greatest of the dot-com bubble. I mean, it was anything and everything that had technology in its title, and this was for somebody who was quickly approaching the 80-year-old threshold. It was horrible. I mean,
they had a year of market performance where it was down like 60%.
Yeah, think about this. So you think about the Great Recession, losing 50, 60, 70% of your assets in a year when you're approaching 80. That's not good management. So it is one of those things where you need to understand there is a dance, a balance, an art to the fact that as you get older, your risk profile is moderating, even if you have to leave some on the table because you want to make sure there is some on the table.
That's right.
When you need it in retirement because you're actually spending or using those resources. I had a story. It was once again, kind of inspired by the Dave Grohl book that then kind of triggered a memory that I had of reading the Morgan Housel book. Is that he shares in one of the books on chapter 5, I believe, on keeping wealth versus making wealth, that Berkshire Hathaway, we all know Warren Buffett, we all know there's Charlie Munger hanging out in the background, but did y'all know there's a Rick?
I never at the shareholders meeting, I never hear about Warren, Charlie, and Rick.
There were three people at Berkshire Hathaway. It was Warren, Charlie, and Rick. But you don't hear anything about Rick anymore. It was Rick Guerin. And Rick, Warren Buffett was asked about this at one point, and here's what Warren Buffett shared on it. He said, Charlie and I knew we'd become wealthy, but we were not in a hurry to get wealthy. And I think that's very Warren Buffett, is that he's sharing these kind of, folksy type stories, but there's a lot going on under the surface with that. He said Rick was in a hurry to get wealthy, super smart, but just in a hurry. And the way he was cutting a corner, listen up, because I see this going on everywhere on social media right now. Everybody is looking to cut a corner on their wealth creation. And Rick got caught because he was in such a hurry to create wealth. Remember, average age for millionaire status is age 49. Pay attention. Keep that stat in the back of your mind as you're looking at Instagram and everything else. But this is what Warren shared. In 1973, 1974, there was a big downturn. Rick was leveraged, meaning used debt, with margin loans. The stock market was down approximately 70% in those 2 years.
So, I didn't go this, but imagine this is what Rick is thinking, right? Oh, man, returns are so good right now, and I can go borrow money so cheap. I can go take out a loan. I can refinance my house. I can do a cash out. I can go borrow at super low rates. Sound familiar? And I'm going to take the proceeds of that and go dump it into something that's going to have a much better rate of return, a much higher rate of return. We are hearing this over and over and over right now, present day. Keep going.
Yeah, so it's that whole thing. Warren Buffett once again said, you can tell who's, he didn't use skinny dipping, but you can definitely tell who's naked out in the ocean when the tide rolls back out. And that's what debt is it's essentially allowing you to have something, but you might be naked. So margin calls were what got Rick. He ended up, because of those margin calls where he had to cover the debt and obviously the value got crushed, he sold his Berkshire Hathaway stock to Warren for under $40 a share. Now here's the cool thing about Berkshire Hathaway. We all know it's legendary in the fact that Warren and Charlie do not do stock splits. They don't do anything to change the valuation of the price of the stock. So you can actually compare what he paid to what it's actually trading at right now. So every one of those shares that he traded at under $40 a share is now worth at least, because I haven't looked at in the last few days, $432,000 a share.
That is painful. And you have to know that Rick is just sitting there thinking, man, was the risk I took on worth it? Did I really need to be in the position I put myself in? And holy cow, what did that cost me over the long term? Now, maybe you're not partnered with a Warren Buffett or a Charlie Munger, but all of us are faced with this exact same situation today in the decisions that we make. How much debt do we take on? What is our actual savings rate? Do we have an emergency fund? Are we making sure that as we build our wealth, we're not only focusing on the building part, we're focusing on how much of it do we get to keep over the long term? Because frankly, we are all, every one of us, emotional creatures.
Well, we're also running. I see so many people on social media that are saying, look, I'm going to keep my equity exposure at 100% until 3 years before retirement. I see that everywhere. And I wonder how many people are running up also the scoreboard when they have enough in the account. And that led to, I told Daniel, I was like, put in the cycle of market emotions.
Sure.
Because we put this slide up all the time, and you guys can see, because you could easily say we're somewhere between optimism and euphoria right now in the cycle of market emotions where everybody feels like they're a genius. And you see this concept. I see so many people that have turned from investing to becoming speculators where they're piling in not because something's a great investment, but because the momentum says, hey, these people are making money. The greed of and the jealousy of wanting to also make money has you jump into it. That is the perfect setup for the next downturn where you'll see people go through all those negative emotions, the anxiety, fear, desperation, panic, and then they reach the depression point of just selling, giving up. They just think this is horrible. And then we go through the whole cycle again. But Daniel has blessed us that he actually put numbers on what a market cycle feels like and then what it feels like to actually do it right through diversification, because so many people are skipping that step right now because we are in the upside or the optimistic side of investing.
Yeah, and we all know that one of the things that people get so nervous about is when we talk about diversification, when we talk about spreading out risk and coming further down on the risk spectrum, we have to sacrifice some rate of return is the common thought process. Well, Louis thought this was sort of interesting, and Daniel put this together. From August of 2000 until September of 2002, the S&P 500 lost about 46%. Now, if you were in a diversified portfolio, and we just did a 60-40 standard portfolio, 60% S&P, 40% 10-year Treasury, you would have only been down about 23%. So you'd be thinking at that point in time, oh, I lost money. I was diversified. I guess I didn't lose as much, but I'm still negative. Well, then from October 2002 until October 2007, S&P 500 made 90% over that time period. The 60-40 portfolio would have made about 62.9%.
Now hit pause, because a lot of you guys, you're going to hear that and be like, I'm kind of jealous of the people who were just 100% equity and right into the index. I only made 60%. They made 90%. This diversification thing's disappointing.
It's not worth it.
That's what. Why am I doing this? Even if you lost money, because I've had clients. I had clients that I picked up during this period. I started my first company in 2002, and I still remember this family that still, I work with the widow, where they came in scared to death because we had just made it through the dot-com bubble. And then I did the risk profile on the husband and the wife, and they came back as very scared. So we came up with a very good diversified portfolio. And then 2003 happened. Market made a lot of money. They made good money. But he goes, hey, maybe I can kick up that risk profile a little bit because I can handle it.
Of course he said that.
Because everybody through greed, because remember there's two there's emotions. There's the fear when you're going down, and then there's the greed when it's going up. And people will see the 90%, man, 60 seems like it's kind of weak sauce.
Yeah,
so
why are we doing
more.
this?
We're going to show you why this is important.
Okay, so now fast forward from November of 2007 until February of 2009, S&P 500 lost 52.6%. The diversified 60/40 only lost about 29.6%. But you're still thinking at that point in time, oh man, I lost money. Right?
Still lost money.
I didn't get that big run up that the S&P had, and now I've lost money again. Well, then we look from March of 2009 all the way through December of 2019. And over that 10-year period, over that decade, the S&P 500 would have made 339%. The 60/40 portfolio would have, again, not made that top upside. It would have made about 214.5%. So you're thinking, man, every downturn I lose money, then every upswing I make money, but man, not as much as the market until you stretch out and look at the total picture. Over that total return period from August of 2000 until December of 2019, the S&P 500 would have gone up about 113%. The 60/40 portfolio went up 176.6%. If you look at $100,000 investing, the $100,000 that was just in the S&P 500 would have done great. It'd be worth $200,000 and almost $13,000. But the diversified portfolio that wasn't on the wild roller coaster is worth almost $277,000. This is why we diversify over the long term.
What sits in the background is not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
That's
at
right.
the end of a long, because realize you're on a marathon of building wealth, and it's so easy to get distracted. And that's why, I mean, all the skill sets I think that create wealth is just understanding this is a long journey, that if you just get some basic fundamentals and good management styles set up, you'll be successful. Just don't basically destruct yourself, self-destruct in a way that you getting your own way of this simple process of creating wealth in the long term.
Building wealth is surprisingly simple, but it's not easy, right? The steps are pretty well known. That's what our entire show is about, is how do you build wealth? How do you accumulate? It becomes a little more difficult to make sure that you maintain your wealth and that you preserve your wealth. And so what we hope is that as we kind of walk through these three areas where we see wealth get taken out, where we see wealth get devastated, you'll be aware of that. And you can start making decisions as you approach your financial lifestyle and circumstance so that your wealth will actually stand and withstand the test of time.
So I want to challenge you. Harness your inner Dave Grohl and ask yourself, are you paranoid? Are you living the frugal lifestyle that lets you live on less than you make? That's not the traditional American way right now, because we're very much pushed by consumer purchases and other things. You can tell it by our savings rates. How paranoid, how frugal, use that skill set to protect your wealth as you're on this journey. I'm your host, Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Hansen. Money Guy team, out.